June 1942. The Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly, a vast expanse of blue under the morning sun. Japan stands at the height of its power. 6 months after Pearl Harbor, the empire's reach extends from the Aleutians to the jungles of Malaya. Its navy dominates the seas, and its pilots have yet to taste defeat. Fleet Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind of Pearl Harbor, sits over maps and charts, his fingers tracing the Pacific like a chessboard. His plan is audacious. Operation MI, the capture of Midway Atoll and the destruction of the remaining American carriers. Midway is small, barely noticeable on maps, yet its position is critical. Whoever controls it controls the Central Pacific. Yamamoto's strategy is simple. Strike Midway to draw out the U.S. carriers, then crush them with a larger fleet waiting nearby. But not everyone is convinced. Vice Admiral Taman Yamaguchi, commander of the Carrier Division II, studies the plan with unease. The Japanese forces are scattered, communication lines are thin, and the Americans might not be as crippled as they assume. If the enemy knows our intentions, he warns quietly, our trap could become theirs. His concerns are dismissed. Pride blinds the admirals. Confidence, they believe, is their shield. On the decks of the carriers, sailors prepare aircraft and torpedoes, paint symbols of past victories, and joke among themselves. The sea is calm, the sky clear. Japan feels unstoppable. But far away, in a dim room on Oahu, American codebreakers led by Commander Joseph Rochefort have cracked Japan's cipher, JN-25. The Japanese referred to their target as AF. To confirm, Rochefort orders Midway to send a fake message, desalination plant broken, fresh water low. When Japan reports this intercepted message back to Tokyo, Nimitz knows the trap has been reversed. AF is Midway, and the Americans are ready. Yamaguchi's warning goes unheeded. Yamamoto believes he is the hunter, but the hunter is being watched. As the Japanese fleet sails toward Midway, tension rises on both sides. Somewhere between confidence and fear, the Pacific prepares for the storm that will change the course of history.
Operation MI, a plan of fire. Operation MI is bold, meticulous, and in theory flawless. Japan's 4 powerful aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, sail toward Midway, their decks bristling with bombers and torpedo planes. Their crews are skilled, confident, and eager for another victory. The plan seems perfect on paper. Strike Midway, destroy its airfields, lure the American carriers into the open, then crush them with overwhelming force. Yamamoto believes it will be a decisive blow that ensures Japan's dominance over the Pacific. But Vice Admiral Taman Yamaguchi, aboard the Hiryu, feels a growing unease. The Japanese fleet is spread too thin. The attack depends on timing and surprise. If anything goes wrong, the carriers could be isolated, vulnerable, and exposed to devastating counterattack. The trap may be ours to fall into, he murmurs quietly to his staff. His caution is ignored. Pride has blinded the fleet. Nagumo, the carrier commander, believes in the unbreakable codes, in flawless execution, in victory. The tension between caution and confidence simmers quietly, unnoticed by most. Meanwhile, the Americans, hidden northeast of Midway, prepare in silence. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz has positioned the carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown behind clouds, waiting for the Japanese to commit. Their pilots ready their planes, crews check engines, fuel, and munitions. They know the Japanese plan because American cryptographers have broken JN-25 and confirmed that AF refers to Midway. The contrast between the fleets could not be starker. Japan moves with pride, believing they are hunting a weakened enemy. America waits, calm, patient, knowing the enemy will walk into the trap. At dawn June 4th, the first wave of Japanese aircraft lifts from the carriers, heading toward Midway. Bombers fly over the vast Pacific, slicing through the morning mist. On the island, American defenders scramble to get planes into the air. Anti-aircraft guns rattle to life, and explosions crack over the reefs. On board the Hiryu, Yamaguchi watches the horizon, the sun glinting on the wings of his planes. A chill runs down his spine. "If they are ready," he whispers, "then we may see hell before noon." By the time the first bombs hit Midway, the stage is set. The hunters have become the hunted. What was meant to be a perfect strike teeters on the edge of disaster.
The enemy waits. As dawn breaks over Midway, the Japanese fleet believes it holds the upper hand. Carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu glide across calm seas, their decks buzzing with activity. Pilots prepare for the first strike. Bombers and torpedo planes line up like deadly arrows ready to be loosed. Vice Admiral Taman Yamaguchi, aboard the Hiryu, surveys the operation with a growing sense of dread. The formation is tight but rigid, leaving little room for maneuver. Communication channels are cluttered. If the enemy knows we are coming, this will be our doom. His warnings are dismissed again. Admiral Nagumo, confident and disciplined, believes in the plan's perfection. The pride of Japan's navy blinds him to the subtle signals Yamaguchi sees, signals the Americans have left in plain sight. On Midway, the defenders scramble. American pilots, their nerves taut, take to the skies in outdated fighters. Anti-aircraft guns roar, creating a deadly curtain of fire. The first wave of Japanese bombers approaches, expecting minimal resistance. Meanwhile, far to the northeast, hidden behind clouds, the American carriers lie in wait. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, calm and composed, oversees the deployment. Every detail is accounted for. Aircraft launch times, attack vectors, pilot rotations. Nimitz knows the Japanese plan because of the brilliance of his cryptographers, who cracked the JN-25 code. The stage is set. The hunters have become the hunted. As the Japanese planes begin their attack on Midway, small but critical mistakes begin to compound. Some planes release bombs too early. Anti-aircraft fire hits others before they reach their targets. Midway's defenses, though lightly armed compared to Japan's assault, inflict enough damage to force the attackers to regroup. Yamaguchi watches from the deck, his unease growing. The calm, precise strikes he expected are nowhere to be seen. He senses an invisible force. The Americans are not only aware of their movements, they are ready for them. Back on the American carriers, planes are fueled and armed. Every pilot knows their mission. Every deck officer coordinates silently. As the Japanese fleet continues its strike on Midway, the first wave of U.S. aircraft lifts unseen in the clouds, heading toward the unsuspecting carriers. The trap is now closing. The pride and confidence of the Japanese fleet, once their greatest strength, is about to meet the patient precision of an enemy who knows the battlefield better than they do. By midday, the battle that will decide the fate of 4 carriers is about to erupt. The first flames. By mid-morning on June 4, 1942, the calm Pacific has transformed into a theater of chaos. Smoke curls from Midway's airfields, rising over the tiny atoll like a dark omen. The first wave of Japanese bombers has struck, but the island's defenses, though modest, have inflicted unexpected resistance. On board the Japanese carriers, Vice Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi watches the results with grim eyes. The pilots return, shaken but intact, their bombs having done less damage than anticipated. His warnings, once ignored, now feel prophetic. "We are exposed, too far apart, too rigid," he whispers. Nagumo remains composed, but the tension among his staff is palpable. Every second lost in regrouping gives the Americans time to strike back. Yet, pride prevents him from altering the plan. Confidence, once their shield,
begins to crack. Far to the northeast, hidden from view, American aircraft are preparing for their counterattack. Carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown launch wave after wave of dive bombers and torpedo planes. Their pilots climb into the clouds, silent and precise, ready to strike at the heart of Japan's carrier force. The first American planes reach the Japanese fleet almost simultaneously. Clouds and sun glare make visibility difficult. Japanese lookouts are unprepared. Within minutes, dive bombers release bombs with deadly accuracy. The Akagi and Kaga erupt into flames. The fire spreads across decks, consuming fuel, planes, and munitions. On the Soryu, a direct hit ignites catastrophic explosions. Pilots and crew scramble, but the damage is immediate and devastating. The carriers, once symbols of invincibility, are now engulfed in smoke and fire. Yamaguchi witnesses the inferno from the Hiryu, horror and disbelief etched on his face. The pride of the Imperial Navy, 4 carriers, the backbone of Japan's Pacific dominance, is being destroyed in mere minutes. This cannot be happening, he murmurs as flames light the horizon. On Midway, the defenders and American carriers remain relentless. Every attack from the Japanese fleet is met with precision strikes. The tide has turned. The hunters are now the hunted. As the smoke rises and the fire spreads across the ocean, Yamamoto's grand plan begins to collapse. Confidence has turned to panic, pride to desperation. The Pacific, once a canvas for conquest, has become a graveyard of ambition and strategy. By late morning, 3 of the Japanese carriers are burning uncontrollably. Only the Hiryu remains operational, a fragile last hope amid disaster. Yamaguchi knows the coming hours will decide not only the fate of the fleet, but the entire Pacific campaign. The battle is far from over, but its direction is clear. Midway has proven that intelligence, preparation, and patience can overcome even the most confident enemy.
Hiryu's last stand. By late morning, the Japanese fleet is in flames. Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu burn fiercely, their decks transformed into infernos. Smoke rises high into the sky, visible for miles. The pride of the Imperial Navy, 4 carriers that once seemed invincible, has been reduced to fire and wreckage. Aboard the Hiryu, Vice Admiral Taman Yamaguchi watches, his face pale, eyes fixed on the horizon. This carrier is the last line of defense. Every officer and sailor knows the odds. The fleet is shattered, their attack plan in ruins, and the Americans are still coming. If we fail, the entire empire will suffer, Yamaguchi mutters, gripping the railing. Yet despite the disaster, Hiryu remains operational. Its planes scramble into the sky for one final counterstrike. Bombers and torpedo planes launch, targeting the American carriers hidden behind clouds. The crew moves with precision, training and courage giving them a brief spark of hope amid chaos. The American carriers, though ready, are now under threat. Alarms blare, and anti-aircraft fire lights the sky. Pilots dive through smoke and gunfire, releasing bombs with deadly accuracy. The battle is intense, close, and unpredictable, a deadly dance across the Pacific. But fate is not on Japan's side. U.S. dive bombers spot the Hiryu from above and strike with precision. Bombs tear through the decks, igniting fuel stores and ammunition. Fire spreads quickly, uncontrollable and merciless. Crew members fight valiantly, but the damage is catastrophic. Yamaguchi, refusing to abandon his post, directs the crew with unwavering determination. His warnings, once ignored, now feel bitterly true. The pride of Japan's navy, the very backbone of its strategy, is slipping away before his eyes. "This cannot be the end," he whispers, voice barely audible over the roar of explosions. By late afternoon, Hiryu is burning fiercely. Yet in her last acts, planes from her decks manage to inflict damage on the American fleet.
Small victories, fleeting, almost meaningless in the face of the larger disaster. The fire consumes the carrier. Smoke darkens the sky. The era of Japanese naval invincibility, built on meticulous planning, training, and pride, has met its harsh reckoning at Midway. Yamaguchi, facing the inevitability, prepares for the final moments. The battle has changed the Pacific. Japan's confidence has been shattered, their strategy laid bare. Midway has proven that even the mightiest fleet is vulnerable when pride blinds caution and intelligence guides the enemy's hand.
The aftermath of fire. As dusk falls over the Pacific, the smoke from the burning Japanese carriers lingers in the sky, a grim reminder of Midway's devastation. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, once symbols of Japan's naval might, have been lost within the span of a single day. The speed of their destruction stunned the world. 4 carriers engulfed in flames within 5 minutes of the decisive strikes. For Vice Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi, there is no relief. Aboard the Hiryu, he watches as the last of his fleet succumbs to fire and smoke. He understands what this defeat means, not just for the carriers or the sailors, but for the entire Pacific campaign. Japan's dominance of the ocean has been broken. He whispers to his staff, "We were overconfident. We underestimated them, and now..." Across the Pacific, Admiral Yamamoto receives the grim reports. The meticulously planned operation, which he believed would crush the American fleet, has failed catastrophically. Shock, disbelief, and anger ripple through the Japanese high command. The war they assumed would be short, decisive, and under their control is suddenly uncertain. For the Americans, victory at Midway is decisive, but costly. Pilots and crew celebrate silently, knowing their skill, preparation, and intelligence turned the tide. They have dealt a blow that will reverberate across the Pacific, shifting the balance of power. The strategic consequences are immediate. Japan can no longer assume unchallenged control of the Pacific. The loss of 4 carriers, along with experienced pilots and crew, severely weakens their offensive capabilities. The U.S. Navy, though battered in previous battles, has demonstrated resilience, cunning, and the power of intelligence-driven warfare. Meanwhile, Midway itself remains in American hands, a tiny but vital outpost, standing as a symbol of resistance. From this small atoll, the Americans will begin their push across the Pacific, turning the lessons of Midway into a blueprint for future campaigns. Yamaguchi, aware that he has survived while most of his fleet has perished, reflects on the warnings he gave. He had sensed the trap, had seen the cracks in the plan, but his voice was drowned by pride and overconfidence. The battle has proven one undeniable truth. No matter how powerful a fleet, no matter how brilliant a plan, intelligence and preparation can outmatch even the most formidable force. As night falls, the sea carries the echoes of battle, the smell of smoke, the remnants of flame, the silence of those lost. Midway is no longer just an atoll, it has become a turning point in the Pacific War, a reminder that overconfidence can be as deadly as any bomb or torpedo. The world will remember Midway not just for the ships lost, but for the lesson learned. In war, preparation and foresight are stronger than pride.
Retreat and reflection. By nightfall on June 4th, the Japanese fleet is a shadow of its former self. Smoke and fire have consumed 3 carriers, and the Hiryu is barely holding together. The proud Imperial Navy, once untouchable, is now retreating under the unrelenting pressure of American air power. Vice Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi remains on the Hiryu, refusing to abandon his post. The destruction around him is total. The once pristine decks are scorched, debris floats in the water, and the cries of wounded sailors echo through the smoke-filled corridors. He has survived while most of his fleet has been destroyed, yet survival offers no comfort. We were blind in our pride, and it has cost us everything, he murmurs. The Hiryu launches one last counterattack, sending planes into the sky in a desperate attempt to strike back at the Americans. These final sorties inflict minimal damage, but are a testament to the courage and discipline of the surviving Japanese air crews. Despite their efforts, the inevitable comes. American dive bombers locate the Hiryu and deliver a precise, devastating strike. Explosions tear through the carrier, igniting fires that spread uncontrollably. Yamaguchi realizes the end has come. In a final act of honor, he refuses evacuation, choosing to go down with his ship rather than abandon the men and vessels entrusted to him. The Hiryu sinks beneath the waves, carrying with it one of Japan's most respected admirals. The retreat of the remaining Japanese forces is chaotic, but necessary. Yamamoto's plan has failed. The attack that was meant to secure dominance has instead revealed vulnerabilities, shattered morale, and shifted the strategic balance of the Pacific. Midway stands. The tiny atoll, once seemingly insignificant, has become a symbol of American resilience and intelligence. The cryptographers, pilots, and sailors who prepared for this battle have changed the course of history. For Japan, the consequences are severe. Carrier strength is diminished, experienced pilots lost, and the ability to project power across the Pacific is weakened. Confidence has been replaced by caution, pride by reflection, and ambition by the stark recognition of limits. Yamaguchi's sacrifice and that of thousands of sailors aboard the lost carriers will not be forgotten. They are remembered as symbols of dedication, courage, and the human cost of pride in warfare. As the surviving Japanese fleet limps away into the twilight, the Pacific seems calm once more, but its waters carry the echoes of fire, smoke, and the turning tide of war. Midway is a turning point, a brutal reminder that even the mightiest forces are vulnerable to strategy, intelligence, and the courage of those who fight against the odds.
The Americans strike back. While the Japanese fleet reels from fire and chaos, the Americans watch from the hidden cloud cover, silent and precise. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, stationed on the command ship behind the Vale of Midway, receives reports from the air. The Japanese carriers are ablaze, their planes scattered, their coordination in ruins. Victory at Midway did not come by chance. It was the result of careful preparation, meticulous intelligence work, and the courage of countless individuals who operated far from the front lines. For months, U.S. Navy cryptographers had been breaking the Japanese naval code JN-25, deciphering messages that revealed the enemy's plans. They knew the attack would come, they knew the time, and they knew the place. When Midway's defenders sent a carefully crafted fake message, a small detail about water shortages, the Japanese unknowingly confirmed their own target. This quiet, invisible battle of intelligence had set the stage for one of history's most decisive naval victories. Narrator, tone builds tension. On board the American carriers, pilots prepare for multiple waves of attack. Dive bombers, torpedo planes, and fighters climb into the sky, ready to strike at the heart of Japan's fleet. They fly not just with weapons, but with purpose, their precision guided by months of intelligence and meticulous training. The impact is immediate. In mere minutes, Japanese carriers that were symbols of pride and strength are engulfed in flames. The Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu burn beyond repair. The Hiryu, Japan's last operational carrier, is soon targeted in a relentless counterstrike. American success at Midway is more than a tactical victory. It is a strategic masterstroke. By eliminating 4 of Japan's frontline carriers, the U.S. Navy shifts the balance of power in the Pacific. Japan, which had seemed unstoppable, now faces a daunting challenge: replace pilots, rebuild carriers, and contend with an enemy that has proven capable of anticipating and outmaneuvering their plans. For the Americans, Midway is proof of the power of preparation, foresight, and unity. It demonstrates that intelligence, the unseen work of analysts, cryptographers, and planners, can be as decisive as courage in battle. Across the Pacific, the psychological impact on Japan is immense. Pride turns to shock, confidence to caution, and a previously untouchable navy is forced to confront its vulnerabilities. The losses are irreplaceable, the lesson unforgettable. Midway becomes more than a battle. It is the turning point of the Pacific War. It marks the moment when initiative, intelligence, and patience overcame sheer strength and hubris. As the sun sets over the islands, the smoke of Japanese carriers fades into the horizon, leaving a stark reminder that in war, knowledge can be more powerful than fire, and preparation can triumph where pride alone fails.
The turning tide. The Battle of Midway did more than destroy ships and planes. It reshaped the Pacific War. Japan's once feared navy, built on confidence, precision, and pride, had suffered a devastating blow. 4 carriers lost, hundreds of experienced pilots gone, and a strategy that seemed invincible shattered in just one day. Vice Admiral Tom Yamaguchi's warnings, once dismissed, now resonate like a grim prophecy. He had foreseen the danger of overconfidence, the vulnerability of scattered formations, and the consequences of underestimating an alert enemy. Yamaguchi went down with his ship, a symbol of courage, duty, and the high cost of foresight ignored. The fleet was strong, he might have said, but pride blinded us to the truth. Admiral Yamamoto, the architect of the attack, is left to absorb the consequences. His carefully crafted plan had failed, his prestige shaken, and Japan's naval dominance irrevocably weakened. The Pacific, once dominated by the rising sun, is now a contested space. For the first time, the Americans can go on the offensive. The losses at Midway are not merely tactical, they are strategic. Japan can no longer assume control of the Pacific without risk. Carrier strength, a cornerstone of naval warfare, is reduced dramatically. Replacing experienced pilots and crews will take months, a luxury Japan cannot afford in a rapidly escalating war. Meanwhile, the United States gains more than a victory. It gains momentum, confidence, and the ability to project power across the Pacific. Midway demonstrates the importance of intelligence, planning, and timing. It is a stark lesson that technological superiority and bold plans can be undone by preparation, foresight, and courage under pressure. The psychological impact on Japan is profound. Pride turns into caution, overconfidence into hesitation. For the commanders who survive, including Yamamoto, the shock of Midway will shape every future operation. Every decision will now carry the weight of potential catastrophe. For history, Midway is more than a battle. It is a lesson in strategy and human nature. It is the story of what happens when brilliance meets hubris, when preparation and intelligence confront pride and assumption. Yamaguchi's fate, the loss of the carriers, and the stunned Japanese high command mark the moment when the tide of the Pacific begins to turn. The Americans, once on the defensive, now seize the initiative. Midway reminds the world that even the mightiest can fall when foresight is ignored, that courage alone cannot replace strategy, and that sometimes a single day, measured in hours, in minutes, in the chaos of battle, can change the course of history forever. Lessons from Midway. The smoke has cleared over the Pacific.
Midway Atoll stands small but resolute, a symbol of American resilience. The Japanese carriers, once the pride of an empire, have sunk beneath the waves. The loss is staggering, not just ships and planes, but the seasoned sailors and pilots whose experience can never be fully replaced. Vice Admiral Taimon Yamaguchi's courage remains etched in history. He foresaw the danger, warned his commanders, and in the end, went down with his ship. His sacrifice, and that of countless others, serves as a reminder of the human cost of war, and the tragic consequences when foresight is ignored. Admiral Yamamoto, the mastermind behind the operation, must now reassess the war in the Pacific. His bold strategy, intended to crush the Americans, has instead emboldened them. The balance of naval power has shifted, and Japan is forced into a defensive posture. Pride, once their greatest weapon, is now tempered by the harsh reality of Midway. For the United States, Midway is a turning point. Intelligence, preparation, and courage combined to achieve a decisive victory. Pilots risked everything, cryptographers uncovered secrets hidden in code, and leaders acted decisively with incomplete information. The lesson is clear. War is not won by pride alone, nor by numbers, nor by brute strength. It is won by strategy, adaptability, and the courage to act when opportunity arises. Midway's impact resonates far beyond the immediate battle. It marks the beginning of a strategic shift in the Pacific War. From this point onward, Japan is on the defensive, and the Americans begin their island-hopping campaigns, gradually reclaiming territory and momentum. Midway is no longer a battle. It is the fulcrum upon which the fate of the Pacific turns. History remembers Midway not just for the ships that burned, nor the minutes in which 4 carriers were lost, but for the lessons etched in fire and courage. It is a story of intelligence versus assumption, of patience versus overconfidence, of bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. The Pacific remains vast and uncertain, but the lesson is timeless. No empire is invincible, no strategy infallible, and no human foresight without value. Midway stands as a testament to preparation, to courage, and to the reality that even the greatest powers can falter when they underestimate their enemy. As the sun sets over the waves, the echoes of that fateful day linger, a reminder that history is shaped not just by might, but by vision, judgment, and the courage to act when it matters most.